Hello, welcome to my ethics class. And to formally introduce you to my class, I prepared this short video presentation where I will explain to you what philosophy is and what ethics is. So first in this presentation, I will define to you what philosophy is, go over some of its basic definitions, including, of course, the etymology and the working definition most philosophy beginners use. After which, we will go over some of the basic branches of philosophy, and of course, we will end up by defining to you what ethics is. Okay. First, what is philosophy? Well, philosophy is a very ancient discipline. Actually, it is the mother of all sciences, as it were, before other sciences started separating themselves independently from philosophy. It started in 6th century BC Greece at the island of, or the city of Miletus. During those times, if we go back to how the Greeks experienced their world, the Greeks actually have very few knowledge of their world. Unlike us today, a lot of information have been accumulated already. Just a click of a button and we have the information immediately. Not only that, we have this what we call formal education, which you are now enrolled since you were kids. Formal education starts from preschool to college. This systematic and organized formal education gave us all the information we need, basic information we need to be able to understand our world. Well, that is not the case with the Greeks during those times. A lot of things, phenomenon, animals, weather, the sun, the moon, were not that, or the knowledge of these natural phenomena were not established during their time. And the Greeks had a lot of questions. They have no immediate answers. Okay, so this was a period when Greek curiosity abounds. And during this time, they have this systematic way of gaining knowledge, okay, which includes the art of questioning, critical thinking, rational argumentation, and systematic presentation of information. They call this philosophy. So here you will see philosophy as defined as love of wisdom. The etymology of philosophy is a combination of, etymology means the origin of the word, a combination of two words, philos and sophia, which means respectively love and wisdom. If you put both terms together, you get the phrase or the sentence, the definition: philosophy, love of wisdom. Now, what does this mean? Or let me cash it out this way. Remember, the Greeks, having no immediate knowledge of their immediate world, they knew some things, but not like the way we do at present. So love actually is understood as the feeling of luck, ada kurang or may kulang. This points to the fact that philosophy considers first the acceptance of the lack of knowledge or the lack of wisdom, which is basically an acceptance of ignorance. From this point of view, we need to understand that contrary to common view that philosophers have a lot of wise things to say, or philosophy is a body of complicated science that or complicated study that has so much wisdom to impart. On the contrary, philosophy, first and foremost, is an acceptance that you know nothing, that you are ignorant. It is in this context that we can understand why philosophy is a love of wisdom. Love as basically understood as the feeling of lack, ada awan, may kulang. And in the case of philosophy, this is wisdom, hence the love of wisdom. To give you a further example on this, for instance, this pandemic, we were forced to learn at home. And let's say you are not prepared to do so because you lack, say, a properly functioning laptop. You now feel lack. Ada kurang, no? May kulang sa'yo. You don't have a properly working laptop to start your online learning. That actually is already love in its basic sense. Loving is the process by which you acquire what you lack. So let's say to get the laptop that you need, you tried to wash the dishes, you tried to do some chores, and finally your mother said, okay, we'll have to buy you some laptop or a laptop to work with. Finally, you acquired what you lack. So now, the new laptop completes you in a way, or as it were. That means love also basically ceases to exist. The end of love as well. Not until you will again find another feeling of lack. Let's say, for example, you have a new laptop, but you do lack the internet connection needed. So again, love starts all over again. You might be asking, is this the same love that you feel for persons? Basically, yes. Remember how you express your emotions when you're in love, that the person you love completes you. It's the same, the feeling of luck. Although, when finally you get the loved one, or you have your loved one, or he or she accepted the love that you offered, it doesn't mean that love ceases to exist, because for persons, not things, love should progress to what you call commitment. But that's another matter altogether. So, going back to philosophy as the love of wisdom, the point here is every philosopher realizes that he or she lacks wisdom as the starting point of philosophizing, the acceptance of ignorance. Now, what is wisdom, or what is it that philosophers believe they lack called wisdom? Wisdom should be differentiated from knowledge. But how should we do that? Well, knowledge actually is knowing the nature of things, persons, events, and ideas around you, those that you encounter every day. That's knowledge. Wisdom is different. Wisdom is, now that you know the nature of things, persons, ideas, and events around you, how do you live accordingly? How do you live as a person who knows this, who has this knowledge? So that's wisdom. Now, no single person can actually contain the entirety of human wisdom. They only share what they learn to the next generation. And even a generation of thinkers cannot even contain wisdom. Knowledge can be contained. If you have, for example, you enroll in an engineering class or a physical therapy class, after 4 years of formal education in your courses, you can say that you gained knowledge already enough for you to perform as engineers or as physical therapists, but you cannot do so when it comes to wisdom. Okay? Wisdom, therefore, is a lifelong activity and even a constant pursuit and a constant clarification of wisdom for every generation to another. So this is what philosophy is. Now, let me make this point before we go to the next. During those times, there was no other sciences other than philosophy. So, all knowledge they gain from the world, from the universe, from animals, from nature, they're all under the term philosophy. Hence, the love of wisdom. The love, the seeking of wisdom that has something to do with everything in their world. Okay. So pretty much, philosophy pretty much is all about knowledge about all things in those times. Well, that is not the case as of now, but we'll go to that later. Now, I would like to present to you the different branches of philosophy as it progressed from ancient to present. Okay. So, the accumulated wisdom of the Greeks about their world, about their reality. The first concern was to establish what is real, because they observed that everything in the world changes. So if everything changes in the world, what then is real? If let me explain this further to you this way. You consider something as real if you have a good grasp of what the thing is in time. Okay? Kaya nga, sometimes sabi nyo, walang forever kasi people change. And that means there is nothing you can hold on to as a permanent knowledge or permanent grasp of things, of the thing that you love. However, this was the primary experience of the Greeks when they realized that everything is in flux, nagbabago lahat. Now, if everything is in flux, then they cannot grasp or capture things as they really are. So they were so interested with knowing what is real. And this developed and progressed into the first philosophy we know until today as metaphysics. Now, granted that things are real this way, okay, the next philosophical preoccupation was to ask the question, how can we know these things in their true reality, their true nature? This later developed into the philosophical branch called Epistemology, which examines the nature and limits of human knowing. This branch in philosophy, although it already was implied in the ancient to medieval periods, emerged and dominated the philosophical discourse in the modern period. So metaphysics dominated knowledge from ancient to medieval and to early modernity, not until the scientific method started to change things for philosophy. This was also the emergence of science as we know it today, which challenged the way metaphysics understood the world speculatively. So science started claiming that they have actually direct access to the world that they examine, and they can show us what is reality, what is truth by evidence. Okay. So philosophy or philosophers during this time proceeded to question the nature of knowledge. If science claims that they can know the world directly, philosophy or epistemology for that matter tried to assess to what extent can the human mind access reality, knowing that there are hindrances to it. There are times when you think you saw something or someone, but turned out to be different, right? There were illusions, your senses can be deceived, and what's not. Now, the third preoccupation of philosophy is now that you know, now that things are real, metaphysics, and we claim that we can know things in their true nature, epistemology, the next preoccupation, or the next question is, do they have value? Okay. This is what we call today ethics, the course that you are enrolled in. Okay. So, ethics actually is the philosophical branch that is concerned with distinguishing properly what is good from what is bad, based on fundamental principles. But we will explain that later. Because after philosophy, after modernity, I was mentioning a while back, the emergence of science, after or during modernity, gradually the different sciences started separating themselves from philosophy itself. So the first was science, the physical sciences, and its other more specific branches. So we have physics that deals with matter and energy. We have astronomy for or astrophysics that has something to do with the knowledge about the physical universe. Philosophy or metaphysics tried to understand the universe through cosmology. Then we have the life sciences, or biology, and its more specific branches like botany and zoology, chemistry. We also have the life sciences. So we have the physical sciences, and then later the life sciences, or the humanities, pioneered by sociology and psychology, then later history, anthropology, and there are too many sciences to mention already. The point is, gradually our universe has been, or our world has been explained by different sciences already. So, what philosophy claimed to explain has been superseded by these specialized sciences. So, the question now is, so what remains in philosophy? What is now in philosophy that it alone can actually explain if almost all aspects of our life have been dominated by specialized sciences, and very successful sciences at that? Well, we go back to ancient Greece. The very first considered philosopher was Thales. Well, he was the guy who claimed that the basic element of all things is water. But we're talking about Thales not because of his answer to that question. We know that that's not precisely correct. But we're talking about Thales because he started a quite different inquiry in his time. Thales knows math. Thales knows astronomy. Okay. Thales knows logistics as well. No? Thales was known to have helped a king cross a wide river, cross a whole army across a river, and planned the logistic problems. Thales was also known to have computed the height of the pyramids of Egypt using the shadows alone. Its shadows alone. Thales also guided sailors by advising them to use the constellation Little Bear. So Thales is, or was, an astronomer. He was a mathematician. He was He even tried business, but it was a very nice anecdote. Okay. But what made Thales a philosopher in his own right? It's not because he said water, but it's the way his inquiry is all about. Thales was concerned with the hule in Greek, or the first principle. We understand it in Tagalog as yung pinaka dahilan ng lahat, or in Ilocano as pinaka puon ken gapo. He was trying to in all things that change, he noticed that there seems to be something similar in all things. Okay? And he went deeper and deeper into what things are. For example, there are two different types of table. One painted white, another brown, different shapes. These are two different tables, but they seem to be the same. They appears to us as tables. So what is the hule, or the basic stuff, or the basic element common to these two tables? You can say wood. But Thales went deeper. What is the basic stuff all woods are made of? Since there are different woods, we have the nara, we have the kamagong, we have the tangkile. These are all wood. But why do we consider them all wood? There must be something common to all wood. Okay. So we can talk about its solidity, but not all woods, or sorry, there are other things other than wood which are also solid, like stone. Okay, so stone, marble, and wood are both solid. So there is something similar and the same between the stone and the wood. So what is the hule, the basic stuff that underlies the stone and the wood? You can say they are both things. But water is a thing as well. Okay? So again, Thales went deeper. They both exist. Okay. So let's not go deeper into Thales, but I hope you understand that this is what it means for Thales to inquire into the hule, or the basic principle, the first principle, yung pinaka puon ken gapo of all things in his time. And that made him basically the first philosopher in the West. And this connects us to the second definition here. Our working definition: philosophy as the study or science of all things. Remember, the most basic element of all things, similar to all things. Insofar as these things exist, which is they exist, it's the most basic. They are beings in their ultimate causes. Or fundamental principles, yung pinakapuon ken gapo. So Thales was trying to establish this, the hule, or the basic principle. And this inquiry actually remains to be strictly philosophical. And no other sciences are actually inquiring about it, or at least capable of achieving an answer to this question. So the search for the first principle of all things, the fundamental basic principle of all things, remains to be a preoccupation of philosophy alone. Hence, we now have here the two definitions of philosophy as love of wisdom, the feeling of lack, ignorance, and the need to gain wisdom, and the search for first principles. Now, this may be very difficult for you to understand, but you see, you were once kids who were looking for the first principle, if you remember yourselves well. Okay. This was the time when you were so makulit, curious, that you repeatedly and unceasingly asked why to your parents. Okay. You may want to observe your younger siblings at home and how they ask questions. Madimalmalpas nga apay, right? Because they really wanted to know what's ultimate, what's pinaka. And this is parallel to how the Greeks treated their world in their time. When you were a kid, you know very little also about the things around you, just as the Greeks were. And this lack of knowledge, now you see how it connects to love of wisdom as feeling of lack. The kid's lack of knowledge about the things around him sparks curiosity, wonder, amazement, and that precisely is the starting point of philosophy. Wonder and amazement. Now, maybe you ask yourselves, why am I no longer wondering at things? Well, that's because you have learned a lot of information about things already, and the consequence is things became familiar and boring. But that is not always the case. You can always try, like for example, one evening with the clear skies, you can try to see the stars. Well, you know a lot about the stars already. You studied that in your earth science. But go try it one time and you'll see you still wonder at the stars. Another thing would be the sunset. Okay? The common response of humans or persons when they see a sunset, they feel silent. They stop. They stop everything and just relish in the moment for fear na something might be lost if they won't stop. There is still something mysterious about the sunset. Even if you knew already a lot about the sun and how the earth moves in its axis, and why the sun appears so orange, because still the world is wonderful, and that's the starting point of philosophy. So here you see how philosophy now is defined as the love of wisdom, the acceptance that you feel, the acceptance that there are things that you do not know yet, and the need to pursue wisdom in life. And once you accept that there are things that you don't know yet, the usual reaction is to go for the ultimate principles. Apa yung mean? Unrepeated, unceasing wise. Well, that is philosophy, and now we proceed to, well, these are the branches of philosophy. Let's now proceed to ethics, the third branch, the course that you're enrolled in. So ethics, basically, as I have mentioned a while back, is the concern for the proper distinction between what is good or what is bad. Notice that you already can distinguish what is good from what is bad from your basic experiences in the past without even studying ethics. Yes, because you have morality. Okay, so we have the natural ability to distinguish what is good from bad. Since you were young, you were developing this ability. Okay. We base our judgments from our personal set of moral standards called morality. Okay. How were you able to distinguish right from wrong? You have a set of moral standards built in and developed as you grew up. Okay. Where did you get your morality or your personal set of moral standards? Well, you got it from a lot of factors, from childhood, from your parents, from the very basic actually are these three presented here. You have cultural norms, tradition, paniniwala ng tradisyon, mga matatanda. No? Here also it includes the training you got from your parents, no? Your culture. The second source of your moral standards could be law, okay? Or the rules of your community. And the third, most especially, is religion. Okay? But there are times when cultural norms are in conflict with each other. Like, for example, good manners and right conduct. English people, or the Western at least, consider slurping bad manners, bad table manners, but in Japan, it is considered as a sign of appreciation, no? Slurping while you eat. Okay. So, how can we weigh which one is right? Is it the European way or Japanese way? Okay. If you are to resolve the conflict, you will realize that maybe we just need to respect one another's culture. That means you now see that there is a deeper principle to merely accepting one's tradition, because tradition, norms are not necessarily fundamental principles of right or wrong. There is something deeper than that, no? Which is respect for another's culture. Now you begin to see how ethics as philosophy has something to do with first principles of morality, or the basic principles or the deeper principles that will guide you to distinguishing right from wrong. Okay. In law, no, even countries differ regarding to law or rules. For example, death penalty is legal to other countries, but for us it's not. Or abortion is legal in other countries, and again, in ours, it's not. Okay, so what is the underlying principle why there are difference in laws such as this? Because there's a deeper value there's a deeper value than merely punishing the person for the heinous crimes they committed. There is something deeper than reparation, no? The consideration of the dignity of life and the chance for conversion. So again, laws are not actually the basic principles of what is right or wrong. In fact, laws are rather based on these deeper principles and fundamental principles of what is right or wrong. Even religion, no? Especially religion, there are lots of rules in every religion that are in conflict with another religion, no? And not to mention that religion has been the source of a lot of blood wars in the past until today. Okay. So there are deeper fundamental principles that have more value than merely obedience to your church leader. And sometimes intuitively you feel something is wrong. An example of that would be denying blood transfusion, for instances when only transfusion can save a life. There is this intuitive sense that we think something is wrong, no? With these rules in our culture, in our tradition, in the laws we follow, and even in the religions that we adhere to. Now, that's where ethics comes in, no? Ethics is a branch in philosophy that deals with the proper distinction between what is good and what is bad, right or wrong, correct or incorrect behavior, using reason, no, and based on fundamental principles or first principles. So what are these principles? Well, that is what this course is for. And for now, I have to welcome you to ethics. And finally, I hope I get you excited enough to study and to discover these principles. So, the emphasis here in ethics is proper distinction based on human reason and on first principles and fundamental causes. My presentation ends here. By the way, there's a separate write-up that I prepared for you to read. The write-up is has richer discussion and information than this short presentation. Everything will be uploaded in your MVLE. Okay, thank you for watching. This ends my presentation.